And I was like, yes! I remember that moment of like, yeah. And I'm like celebrating. She's looking at me going, you are the only person in the world who would celebrate me going, the end of our friendship would be, I'd be fine. And
yeah, that discussion didn't go so well when I tried to go home to my husband that night. I'm like, guess what? He's like, excuse me? I'm like, we have some more talking to do.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, please support us on Patreon.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
And welcome to the final in this little mini series on Selfirst. So we've covered a couple of different topics. This time we're going slightly to a slightly unusual space, or I think maybe a slightly unexpected space. We're talking about Selfirst. What we're talking about today is looking at the difference between a safe space versus a comfortable space, and how a comfortable space, more specifically, can actually cost your needs.
There's been a lot of talk over the last 10 years or so about safe spaces.
Oh, yeah.
But there seems to be some confusion about what a safe space really is. People often confuse a safe space with a comfortable space, and the perception is that a safe space is a space in which nothing uncomfortable will happen. Mm-hmm. But sometimes a space that is comfortable for one person comes at the discomfort or cost of another.
Yeah.
Example would be a friendship. So if I always wanted to be comfortable, Claire wouldn't be able to share if there was something uncomfortable that needed to be addressed or discussed. Mm-hmm. So my comfort would come at Claire's expense. So if the space is a comfortable one, this often means that someone won't speak up if they're feeling uncomfortable or safe.
Or unsafe.
Uncomfortable or unsafe.
I mean, they might not speak up if they're feeling safe as well. I mean, you don't know.
That is a very key choice of words that I screwed up there.
That's a really important piece. Yeah, let's get clear on that.
I'm going to go back up one more. If the space is a comfortable one, this often means that someone won't speak up if they're not feeling comfortable or if they're feeling unsafe, which means that a space that's comfortable for one person can actually be unsafe for another person.
Absolutely. So when we talk about a safe space, what exactly are we meaning? The safe space really is one in which the people and situations are approached with mutual respect, mutual value, and a mutual prioritizations of needs. It's also a space where issues are dealt with in order that those issues aren't affecting the space. So in order to create a safe space, you need to be able to address issues as and when they come up, but remembering to do so in a way that has mutual respect, mutual value, and mutual prioritization of needs. Now, it's important to say that this process isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's often uncomfortable, but it does create more safety because there are no issues present in the space that is preventing it from being safe. And there's nothing unspoken that somebody is feeling unsafe about that isn't being addressed. What this means is that it creates more trust, it creates a deeper connection, which actually tends to facilitate more openness. So when you are open about the things that are challenges for you, and you feel respected, your perspective is listened to, heard, and valued, and resolving the situation is approached in a way that honors your needs and the other person or people's needs in the space, you feel safer to be more open in the future. So you end up with this, the more open we are, the more, and as long as that openness is met with respect and value and prioritization of needs, you will feel safer then to be more open. And then the more open you are, the more safe it becomes, as long as it's continued to be handled and approached in that way.
I actually think a great example of this is kind of how our friendship evolved. And we've talked about it before in a couple of the previous episodes where we invite each other in to call each other out.
So to call each other in. Or to call, depending which way you want to describe it.
Yes. We actually we want to be called out by each other. If I'm doing something that could be harmful to Claire or to anybody else, I want to know that so that I have the opportunity to change that behavior, that action, those words.
Right.
When this first came about, I have to say, it was really uncomfortable. I had never done friendship the way that I have with Claire. And the thought of, I could get called out at any moment.
And also the thought of calling me out.
Oh, that was, I mean, yeah.
That's where I noticed your apprehension more than anything. Was you were uncomfortable with being called out, but there was more of an openness to that than there was for, like, I could see the level of discomfort came up exponentially when you thought about calling me out for something.
And Claire actually addressed that in how she is and just how she operates, because she has a willingness to call herself out and demonstrate her desire to handle any potential issues in a respectful way that supports everybody's needs in the friendship. So her ability to be like, hey, I screwed up. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, this is how we're gonna do things. Like, she called herself out, and it called me into the process, which was really kind of an amazing thing. And all of that is linked to our security need. It's about feeling physically and emotionally safe. Comfortable isn't safe. Comfortable is a way of masking this need, and it's a way of masking safety. It's not really meeting it, but it masks some of the symptoms not being met currently.
Or more importantly, it masks some of the symptoms of not having that need met. So it's like we're not necessarily feeling the unmet need in the same way we would be without the masking, but we're not actually meeting the need properly or fully either.
It's all kind of a facade. Just
absolutely.
An illusion.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at the example that we're talking about now with our friendship, is that if one of us or other of us was always comfortable and the other wasn't safe, it's not really secure. It's not really a safe space because it's the illusion of a safe space. It's like, oh, well, because there's nothing being brought up, that means there must be nothing to address. There must be no issues. But the interesting thing is that because a lot of us are quite sensitive to other people, to their emotions, even to their energy, is that if something isn't being spoken that is present, quite often we can pick up on that. And that actually makes it feel even less safe because it's like, hold on a second, something feels off, something feels weird, something doesn't feel quite right here. And the fact that it's not being spoken means, it's almost like what's lurking in the shadows, what isn't being spoken about, and when could it jump out at me? You're kind of waiting for this, and that feels there's more anxiety in that. It feels far less safe than actually having things out on the table, as long as you're dealing with it in that mutually respectful, mutually valued, and prioritization of needs way. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things with us is that there's very, very rarely ever something where it's like, hold on, something feels off. Because the split second, something feels off for one of us. It's like, hold on a second, I gotta voice something. And the phrase that we tend to use is like, I've just got to clear this, because it's like there's something present, and we will share it, we'll put it out there, and we'll check in with the other person, like is everything okay with you? You're like, something feels slightly off with your energy. And it may be that it's nothing to do with the space itself. It may be that there's something else going on outside of it, but by not being open about that, it is affecting the space that we're in together. Or it may be that there is something that is like, oh, actually, yeah, that thing that you said didn't land that well with me. Personally, I'd prefer it if we dealt with it this way. Like, can we talk about it and figure it out? But that willingness and that ability to kind of dive into that space together, and to both want to create a space that works for both people and prioritizes both people's needs and respects both people and values both people, that is what creates that safe space.
And what a safe space and what safety actually is knowing you're emotionally, energetically, and physically safe.
Yeah.
So even when addressing difficult situations and actually especially when addressing difficult situations.
Oh, yeah.
Being heard and respected, being valued, having your needs mattered but not prioritized above anybody else's, and finding a way that works for everybody. That's what's really important.
Right.
Because we have to remember a comfortable space often isn't a safe space. And a safe space isn't always a comfortable space. And comfort can actually cost your needs.
Really?
It can.
I guess I better say more, right? Yeah. Or not. I mean, I don't have to. I mean, like, we could just leave it there.
I mean, that would be like, I'm kind of thinking like, that's kind of like the cliffhanger ending. Like,
right? It's like, at this point, it's like, dun, dun, dun.
Right?
What comes next? So,
can you add that music in?
I gotta see if I can find that. You know, I'm gonna looking for that music now.
What did I do?
So Serena is absolutely right. Comfort can cost your needs, and this often happens specifically in the context of the I word. It's that I word again. We're going back to interconnectedness. This comes up so frequently when we're looking at our needs, because if your comfort comes at the cost of somebody else's needs and does harm to others, because of that interconnectedness between the two of us, as we know, it will negatively impact or erode or eat away at your own needs. Your own needs will be compromised by the fact of doing that. So let's look at an example. If I have done something that is harmful, inappropriate, even racist due to ignorance, and there were times in the past where I have said things that have perpetuated systemic racism because I was ignorant. I hadn't done my work. I hadn't gone to seek out the understanding of the things that I had been conditioned into and figure out how to change those so I wasn't doing harm to others. In those situations, I didn't know I'd done anything quote unquote wrong. And here's the kicker. I didn't know any better. And I'm putting that in inverted commas. Because I hadn't gone to find out better. It hadn't been important enough for me to not do harm to other people, to go and learn. But the thing about it is that even the phrase, I didn't know any better, is normally used because it feels more comfortable than saying, I didn't know I'd done something wrong. Just think about, like, I didn't know better. I didn't know I'd done something wrong. That something wrong lands heavier within us, because when we realize that we've done something wrong and we've harmed somebody else, we get to feel the impact because of our humanity of recognizing, here is another human being, I've done harm to that. And because the humanity is that connection, humanity is what fosters that interconnectedness. And when I feel that, it's because I feel the impact I've had to another human being. And intrinsically, we don't want to do harm to others. Intrinsically, because of that interconnected, that mutual humanity, we don't want to show up in ways that are going to create challenges, problems, and negatively impact and harm others. So using the word wrong is directly acknowledging that we have done harm. But this is the thing, it's something that we want to do because it creates that discomfort, that humanity piece where it's like, oh, I can see there's a human being here and their humanity connects with my humanity. Oh, I feel bad within my system because I've done something wrong to another person and I don't want to do that. That feeling within yourself creates that internal motivation not to do it again. So we want to feel that because that is what brings us back into integrity with ourselves. And that's one of the things that helps to support our value need. So if I'm uncomfortable because I didn't know, if I'm comfortable because I did something that harmed another person, but I quote unquote didn't know I've done anything wrong, and I would be uncomfortable if somebody called me out about it, it's harmed somebody else in the space, and my ignorance means I am likely to do it again because I don't know I've done anything wrong. My comfort is coming at the cost of somebody else's needs in the present, because my need to be, my quote, I'm going to say that I'm going to change that. I don't even like using that word in a sentence. My need to be comfortable. No, it's not a need to be comfortable at all. My desire to be comfortable is coming at the cost of somebody else because my language is harming somebody else, and my desire not to be uncomfortable and not be called out on it is perpetuating that situation and maintaining it. And not only that, by perpetuating it, by not learning about it because I haven't realized I've done anything wrong, even though quite often when we kind of we've spoke about it on previous podcasts, we did know, like we did know that what we were doing was not okay. By not having that discomfort, that uncomfortable conversation, and having that kind of brought to our attention in a way that we cannot deny or ignore, we will likely affect this other person or others in the future, because we're just going to keep doing it. We're not going to change a behavior unless we realize and recognize that there is a problem with it. So due to the interconnectedness, because my behavior is affecting somebody else's in the present and will likely affect others in the future, it will also affect my needs too. So for example, if you look at that example, if I've said something that is racist or inappropriate to somebody who is harmed by my words, and my desire to be comfortable means that they don't call me out on it, don't tell me about it, what will end up happening is it will likely affect the friendship. There's no way it can't, because it will make them more distant, because no longer am I somebody who it feels safe to be around. So for their own protection and preservation, there will naturally be a distance that is created between the two of us so that they can feel more safe. That distance will obviously affect me, because this is a friendship, this is a relationship, and I've had these moments where this thing that's happened has either pulled me apart from people because they've not felt comfortable and safe to speak to me and tell me what's happened and the impact it's had on them, for me to be able to address it and bring us closer together. The flip side of it, though, is that if you deal with it in a way that is a safe space, not a comfortable space, and they can call you out and say, hey, this thing that you did, it's not okay. It's not their job to do that. It's not their responsibility. It's my work to go and proactively seek that out. But if they do feel comfortable and they do have a desire to share that with me dealing with it in that mutually respectful, mutually valued, and mutual prioritization of needs way, and that approach allows us to come closer together again, because they will feel more safe with me, because they know that not only am I going to hear them, but I'm doing something about it. I'm acting in a way to create more safety for them by how I show up in the space, because I'm wanting to learn and do better. So another example of this kind of safe space, comfortable space kind of thing is, for example, if I've been in the presence of a man who has made a sexist quote unquote joke or inappropriate comments about women. I'm going to be honest, this has happened so frequently on so many occasions with so many male friends of mine over the years. It's got to the point where for a period of time, I don't think I even noticed it, because it was so frequent. The thing about it, in those situations, if I haven't felt comfortable or safe to tell that person how I'm feeling, to address the situation, and I don't feel comfortable to do that, the only options available to me are to stay in a situation where his comfort is prioritized over my need to be safe in relationship. And remember, safety is not always physical safety, although it can affect your physical safety, your sense of physical safety around someone when this happens. It's also emotional safety, for you to feel like you are safe around somebody and that your emotions are not going to be negatively impacted by being around them. So the options are stay in a situation where his comfort is prioritized over my need to be safe in relationship, or create distance in the relationship. And I'm going to be honest, 9 out of 10 times I've chosen and still choose option B, to create that distance in relationship, because of the reactions I've had when I have shared with male friends of mine, hey, that's not okay with me. And because of the privilege dynamics, and again, this is not something that the privilege dynamics in general are not something we're experts in and educators in. I do share about male privilege, because being a woman, it's one of the pieces that is actually my lane I can speak to. But 9 out of 10 times in that situation, I've created that distance, because when I have mentioned it or I have called it out with people who I actually felt safe with to do so, the reaction has been such that I realize actually I'm not safe, because it's not been dealt with in a way that has been mutually respectful. It's been dealt with in a way which has prioritized and centered his needs and his comfort over my need to feel safe. It's not been dealt with in a way where I have felt equally valued in the dynamic and in the relationship to him. And he's been the one who's been centered in how it's been dealt with. So quite often, and there are exceptions to the situation. I'm very, very blessed and very grateful to have some amazing men in my life where I am able to have these conversations and I am able to call them out, and they do step into the space, and it's been really beautiful to experience that. But more often than not, I will probably go for option B over option A because it's the one that feels safest to me to do so. And this shows up a lot in privilege dynamics. This is just one example of that. So the thing is if your comfort compromises your other needs, sometimes we get into habits that feel comfortable. So this is not only about your comfort affecting other people's needs. This is about where your comfort can also cost and compromise your other needs. So when we get into those habits that feel comfortable, the comfort of the habit stops us from making changes that would actually meet our other needs. And that's the thing, is that quite often, as Serena said earlier, the comfort is often linked to the security need, but it's not a very good way of meeting that need. Often it's just masking that need. So that comfort, that illusion that we're getting our security need met just because it's familiar, just because it's a habit, just because we got used to it, when in actual fact, it might be detrimental to some of your other needs, or it might be stopping you from meeting the other needs in more effective ways. So great example, and this is something so many people I'm sure can relate to, is when you are in a relationship that you know is not working, and you know it would probably be better for you to leave, but it's comfortable, so you stay. And the comfort provides the illusion that it's meeting your security need. And it might be meeting your love and connection need, although probably not very well. And definitely not as well as we would like, want, or deserve if we know that the relationship isn't working and that it would be better for us to leave. And the thing is that often in those situations, it's actually costing other needs by doing so. It might be costing our emotional experience expression. We might not be experiencing that full spectrum of emotions because the relationship isn't the one which is going to facilitate, support us in doing that. It might be compromising our value need because we may be looking at the situation and feeling, well, I'm comfortable and I don't really believe I deserve more than this. I don't really believe I deserve better than this. So I'm going to stick with this because it's better than not having anything. And I don't believe I'm deserving of what I actually want and what I really desire. It may be compromising our personal power need because we might look at it and go, well, I don't really have a choice because this is so comfortable, and we come up with excuses of reasons that we can't leave. That not taking that choice, not actively engaging with our choice to leave, and the fact that the choice to leave is the one that is the better for us, it's going to serve us better, means that we might be compromising our personal power need. So it's looking at how our choices and actions and behaviors may compromise other people's needs, which obviously because of the interconnectedness compromises ours, but it's also how our comfort can cost and compromise our own needs, just in terms of how we're relating to ourselves.
I also want to jump in there and say, when we're talking about relationship, this relates to any relationship. It relates to partnership, friendship, work relationship. Mm-hmm. We see this in all relationship areas.
Absolutely.
Just so it doesn't get pigeonholed as a partnership relationship.
Absolutely. Although a lot of people have probably experienced it in that context. Yes. But yes, it's really important to remember that you're absolutely right. This can be in any friendship, work, colleague, family relationship. And the thing is that we're used to looking for it in intimate relationship because mm-hmm. we're used to experience. We don't necessarily notice it in the same way with our friendships. We don't evaluate our friendships. We don't review our friendships to see if they are really working for us. Again, because they've always been there. It's comfortable, so we think that they always have to be there, rather than going, actually, is this friendship? Is it nourishing me and supporting me as equally as it is them, or in a way that feels equal? And it feels like, I mean, and this is an over time thing. It's not like, oh, well, I did this last Friday and you haven't done it, so therefore that's it. Like, this relationship doesn't serve me anymore. There are going to be ebbs and flows in every relationship, but over time, if it's not feeling like there is that mutual beneficial, it's mutually beneficial, mutually respectful, you're mutually being valued, and the prioritization of everybody's needs is mutual and roughly equal. That's when we need to kind of look at it and think, maybe there's another way.
Mm-hmm. There's always another way. So if you learn how to meet your security need in a self-first way, you no longer need comfort. Because if you feel truly safe, you can get you can get comfortable with discomfort.
Yeah.
Which is empowering in so many ways. It allows you to deal with issues quickly and effectively in ways that bring you closer to others rather than apart. And again, I have to use our relationship as an example. Our love and connection needs are better met because we're prepared to be uncomfortable with each other.
Right.
Which has built an unprecedented layer of trust. And it's something that's built upon and compounded. It's not, as Claire said, it's not just a one-time thing that's like, oh, this person's
You're
no
not
longer
one and done.
Yeah, you're not one and done in either way.
Yes.
It's not one and done, it's over. I mean, dependent on the situation.
Right.
And it's not one and done, oh, I've done this already. No, this is a constant process.
I was nice to you 3 weeks ago on Thursday. Is that not enough? Like, are we not done now? Like, surely that's it, right? I'm like quota, like checkbox, ticked off.
Right?
Done?
Yeah, no. Just one and done and over.
Not how that works.
No. No. Because if we had done that, we wouldn't have built that trust.
Right.
We wouldn't have gotten closer together. Because what brought us closer together was the true safety, not the comfortability, which I cannot stress enough. Like, our relationship oftentimes gets uncomfortable. And one of Claire's favorite things, this may be uncomfortable to hear. And I'm like, probably, but let's go. Because I know what's going to come from that is growth, and it's learning, and it's awareness. And I want to be called into that.
Absolutely. And actually there's I know that you've got more to share on this, but I think that the other thing that to remember is that this is one of those things that there is a very symbiotic relationship here. We've talked about the symbiotic relationship in other aspects, and we will actually be talking more about this in future podcasts. But there is a relationship between a feeling of safety and the ability to be open. And so the more open you are, and as we said previously, having it received in that way that is about respect, value, and the mutual prioritization of needs means that you feel more safe, which means that you're willing to be more open, and that being received makes you feel more safe, and which makes you feel willing to be more open, and so on and on, so on and so forth. The opposite is also true, which is that if you are open and you don't get received in that way, you feel less safe, which means you feel less willingness to be open, which means you feel less safe, which means you feel less. So it's important to recognize that this is something that it's, as Serena said, it's not a one and done thing. It's like how each and every instance of this is handled either brings you closer or moves you further apart. So the more that you do this and the more that you respond in this way to it, the closer and closer and closer you get. And because if that happens, if like Serena and I have done it, I don't know, if we've done it like 500 times with each other, and then one time one of us doesn't respond in the best way possible, maybe because of capacity or the other things they've got going on in their life, we go, okay, so this wasn't great. This wasn't how we would have wanted to do things. But because we've built up that trust, because we've done it so many times, there's going to be that moment of, and in that situation, the funny thing, the really interesting thing about it is that if that were to happen, if I kind of shared openly with Serena, and Serena came when she was like, and like, well, what have you? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. But if she responded in a way that, but if she responded in a way that wasn't that kind of mutual respect, mutual value, and mutual prioritization of needs, my first response would probably be, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? What's going on? It would be a curiosity, because the fact that she's responding in that way when she normally responds in a different way is probably an indicator to me that maybe she's not okay. There's stuff going on. Now, does that mean it's okay how she's responded? No. And normally when we would deal with that and we go, okay, yeah, this stuff's going on. And at that point, there'd be an apology for how it was. And again, and we've talked about this in the apology series, that's an opportunity, screw up, an opportunity to bring it close, bring us close together. And the apology is how we do that. So it's important to remember that, that this is something that the more you do this and the more you practice this, the more trust there is in it. And the more it's okay if you make mistakes, because I know I can make mistakes in this space. And because I've demonstrated over and over again who I am and who I want to be and the kind of person I want to be in friendship and the kind of friendship I want to create. If I have a moment where I'm human, it does happen. And I don't deal with things in those ways. Normally there's enough credit in the bank that if I make a withdrawal, that it's not going to put me overdrawn. I've invested that time and energy and money into this relationship, as has Serena. And it's through doing that we create that foundation.
And I don't think this will come to a surprise to anybody. It's difficult to be in relationship with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
It's difficult to be in partnership with somebody, and especially being in friendship with Claire and being business partners with Claire. I mean, those are two difficult situations that we've talked about, multiple times in podcasts that both of us weren't sure was gonna work because it very often doesn't.
And I know this is something this was a point that I raised when we were talking about this, and I'm actually going to correct myself on this. I'm going to say it can be difficult to be in a relationship with somebody. Like it can be, it's challenging, not necessarily difficult. Like it takes effort, it takes energy. It takes putting the energy into something. It takes cultivation to have that kind of relationship. It takes putting energy and effort into something. And it can be challenging to be in business partnership because you're dealing with two people with different kinds of needs and different needs that are met and not met. So that's always going to bring its challenges because it's very unusual, very unlikely that you're going to have both people in exactly the same place, exactly the same time, exactly the same situation, needing exactly the same needs met in exactly the same way. So you've always got to navigate those differences and those discrepancies. So yes, it can be challenging, and yes, at times, often it is. And this is part of the reason we've been able to do both, right?
It's really the only reason we've been able to do both because without this, I mean, take your closest friend and the challenges you might have in that relationship. Take your work situation and think of challenging situations you might have there. Now compound them together and be with your friend in your work situation where there are things that need to be discussed and things come up. Sometimes it is easy. There are days where it's smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. And then there are days that I call Claire in, Claire calls me in. Yeah. We call each other and we grow and learn together. And it's been a beautiful experience to see it because going through the needs, we've been able to really identify what we need for ourselves and meet those and then be able to offer that extra capacity to give more.
Right. And I think that especially knowing that we have a safe space, but it's not necessarily a comfortable space, makes dealing with things that are big challenges for other people relatively easy. I remember we had a conversation not that long ago, actually, about the finances of the business and about the percentage split of the business. And I'm not going to go into the details about that. But I remember there was, even with the trust that we've built up, even with the relationship we have and how we are with each other, there was a little apprehension about having that conversation or the conversation that we needed to have around that and thinking, oh goodness, I really hope this goes okay. I know that finances is one of the big triggers. I know that how people are valued within the business in terms of percentage split is a big thing that can cause real challenges in business relationships. And especially because there's a personal relationship here, I remember having that thought process, and it was the easiest conversation in the world. I remember we sat down and I can't remember who went first.
I was like, what do you think? You're like, I think this. And I'm like, yep.
And the funny thing, what was really interesting, actually, I would go further than that, is that I thought this, and my perspective and how I view my thoughts about how it would work to do it, actually it definitely favored your needs more than your perspective did. And you came back and went, well, actually, I think this, which favored my needs over Serena, not over, but there was definitely a weighting where I was wanting to make sure that Serena felt valued and Serena was wanting to make sure that I was appropriately valued. And because we were both demonstrating through how we were talking about literally what our financial ownership in the business would be as a result of that, it was just easy. And we actually came to a point where I think, as I remember, there was like, we both had ranges, and I had one range that that spanned a little further in one direction, and you had a range that spanned a little further in the other direction. Each of our ranges spanned further for the other person than for ourselves. And what we ended up doing was landing in that kind of middle ground where, okay, we clearly agree on this. This is the range that we agree on, and we'll continue to talk about it. But I remember that conversation. I remember at the end we were like, well, that was way easier than I thought it. Like, it was way easier than it quote unquote should have been. Like, how was that easy? And it was because of this space that we created, and because of our ability to do this and how we've done this, we've been able to have these dialogues not just only not negatively affect either our personal relationship or a business relationship, but actually bring us closer together in both due to this. Like, we are closer friends because of how we showed up in that business conversation. We are closer business partners because of how we deal with our friendship situations. And the interesting thing about it is that often when it comes to business partnership and friendship, people always like, oh, you need to leave the friendship outside. Business is business, friendship is friendship, and they're two distinct entities. And actually, I'm only realizing this as I'm saying it right now. The thing that's made us so strong is the fact that they're both true. They're both present within the same space, and how we show up in both supports both of them. Like, each supports the other. Like,
well, and I think that kind of, it's a little nod to our authenticity, is that that's just how we operate.
Yeah.
We're not putting on our mask to be in business or our mask to be in friendship. We're just being, and we are giving each other the same levels of respect and prioritization and care in both relationships. One doesn't outweigh the other. Because we're in both relationships together, we're in it together.
And because we're in both relationships, I think we both realize that if I'm not showing up in the way I want to in the business relationship with Serena, if there's something that's not going to be working for her over here, chances are it's likely to affect our friendship, and vice versa. Yes, the conversation we would have and how we would have the conversation when it comes to business might be slightly different because of the topics we're talking about, but the same is true with the other way around. Like, if Serena felt like I'd shafted her, let's call a spade, and that is a phrase that we have gone and looked up, and we've made sure that it's not an issue, because it was questioned at some point whether that was a phrase that was an issue. But let's call it as it is, which is that we'd had the financial conversation and she felt like I'd shafted her, and therefore that I was demonstrating that I didn't value her in the way that she deserved to be valued, that would have affected how she would have felt about me. How she probably felt about our friendship.
Absolutely.
Because if I don't value you over here, how can I be saying I'm valuing over there? And I think that's the thing, is people try to make these distinct things, but actually how you show up in one affects the other, and vice versa. And to suggest that that's not the case is not allowing yourself to really honor and respect all of your needs, and how our needs, I don't, unfortunately, my needs don't go, oh, we're in work right now. Okay, we're only going to do these needs, right? Okay, because it's work. Okay, the other needs don't matter right now because I'm in work.
Right.
And likewise, it doesn't go, oh, we've left work, friendship time. Oh, it's only these needs. Like, all of your needs show up in all of the areas of your life, so that it's going to be affected by all of them too.
And a comfortable space versus a safe space is the same in friendship as it is in business. If the space isn't safe if the space isn't safe in friendship, it's not going to be safe in business.
Yes.
And vice versa. And the same thing, if it's just comfortable, like, it will trickle over to the other relationship. There really is no separation if you are in mutual relation for multiple.
Right. If you're in a close relationship of any kind.
Right. It's going to span.
Absolutely. There was something that popped into my head then, and it just popped out again when you were talking about. That was what I was going to say, is that not only if it's a comfortable safe space, but the reality is a comfortable space often isn't actually comfortable, because if something is, as we spoke about earlier, like something that has the illusion of being comfortable, like, oh, we're not addressing the problems, therefore it's not uncomfortable. actually, because of what that puts into the space, and because those unspoken situations and feelings and thoughts are not being addressed, those are in the space. So the irony is that the comfort in that space is often an illusion, and it's not a particularly good one because you can normally feel it. So it's like, well, they're like, oh, we're not like, well, don't. That's we don't talk about that. Like, we don't talk about that because
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But the thing is that everything is fine, and we can feel that it's not fine. So even the space that has that illusion of comfort very often actually isn't comfortable for anybody, not in the long term, and certainly not in close relationship. So anything else you want to add on this before we finish up?
Just remembering that just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's safe.
And yeah, just because it's comfortable doesn't mean, and often there are times when sometimes a safe space isn't a comfortable one. Mm-hmm. And the more that you meet your own needs, the more you are willing to get uncomfortable, because you know that discomfort is not, my needs are not going to get met. That discomfort is, this is something that we have to go through in order to get my needs met and to keep them met. And there's a big distinction there. So the better you're meeting your own needs, the more willing you tend to be to get uncomfortable and to be open to having those uncomfortable conversations. Because if the end of the world happened, and we've had this conversation before, if the end of the world happened,
I'm like, did we? I don't remember.
That's not what I meant. If the quote unquote worst happened, it wouldn't be the end of the world. That was what I was trying to say, which is that if Serena and I one day had this massive blowout, and we've had this conversation, I'm really kind of curious. Like, I don't think there's anything that really could happen that would be like, nope, that's it, I'm done. I don't feel like there's anything we couldn't work through. Mm-hmm. But if that ended up happening and our relationship ended up ending from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, or from both, if that happened, I know that my needs would still be met. Would I be disappointed? Absolutely. Would I be sad? Would I have to process that experience because I would have preferred for this beautiful relationship to continue in the way that it has done to date? But my needs would still be met. And I remember a conversation we had, I don't know whether it was this time or whether it was, I remember there was a conversation, I don't remember where we were when we had it. I think I was in the UK. And you said to me, oh no, I think it was here. We were sat on the couch at the other house, I think. And you said to me, she's like, don't take this the wrong way. And I'm like, okay, probably won't, but okay, thanks for the caveat. And you're like, if we weren't friends anymore, my needs would still be met. And I was like, yes! I remember that moment of like, yeah. And I'm like celebrating. And she's looking at me going, you are the only person in the world who would celebrate me going, the end of our friendship would be, I'd be fine. And
yeah, that discussion didn't go so well when I tried to go home to my husband that night. I'm like, guess what? He's like, excuse me? Like, we have some more talking to do.
Well, but that was the essence of it. It was like, I would be fine. Mm-hmm. Even if this all crumbled tomorrow, yep. I'd be fine because my needs would still be met. And I think that's the thing, is that us knowing how to meet our needs means that it allows us to feel more safe, because we're not dependent on the relationship to feel that safety. I'm not dependent on you showing up in a different way or you being there in order for my needs to be met. So I'm willing to go into that uncomfortable space because that's what creates that closeness in relationship. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. So that is the end of our little mini Selfirst series. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back next week. And what I'd like to say in the meantime is to say thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And if this Selfirst series, a lot of this came from requests, from questions, from people just sharing their challenges with us, saying, hey, this is something I'm experiencing right now. Could you do something, could you do a podcast that could help us out with this? So if you have any of those challenges, please do feel free to get in touch with us. Let us know. Send us your questions, send us your challenges. We will do what we can to do a podcast that will help and support you. We'll be back next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We're sending you lots and lots of love. Stay safe. And in the meantime, between now and then, remember to keep meeting your needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, guys.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, there's a difference between a comfortable space and a safe space. A safe space is the one that honors everyone's needs.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.